It was a quiet morning on Earth when the first signs of trouble appeared. The sun rose over the planet, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. People went about their daily routines, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. But in space, far above Earth, things were changing fast. A vast fleet of ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were unlike any human-made ship, massive, dark, and covered in strange symbols. These were the ships of the galactic Iridian Empire, a civilization that had ruled over countless worlds for thousands of years. They had conquered star systems, bending species to their will with their superior technology. Now, Earth was their next target. The Iridian Empire had already sent ambassadors to other planets in the past. Their message was always the same: submit or face destruction. This time, however, they had sent something even more intimidating: an entire fleet. Their leader, Emperor Malrix, was known throughout the galaxy as a ruthless ruler who never tolerated disobedience. His empire had never failed to bring a planet into submission, and he was confident that Earth would be no different. News of the fleet's arrival spread quickly. Governments around the world scrambled to respond. It was hard for anyone to believe what was happening. The Empire had arrived, and the people of Earth had no idea what to expect. Would they surrender peacefully, or would they fight back? The United Nations called for an emergency meeting. Leaders from around the world gathered in a virtual conference, all looking at the giant image of the Iridian ambassador on their screens. He was tall, with skin that shimmered like metal and eyes that glowed a fierce red. His voice was calm but cold as he spoke. "We come not to conquer, but to offer you a choice," the ambassador said, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Earth is a valuable planet. You have resources that our empire needs. Submit to the Iridian Empire, and your world will prosper under our rule. Refuse, and you will be wiped out, along with your entire civilization." The leaders of Earth exchanged nervous glances. The ambassador's words were clear. There was no room for negotiation. Surrender or perish. The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, casting doubt on every decision they made. Dr. Eleanor Voss, a renowned scientist and peace advocate, watched the broadcast from her lab in California. She had spent her life studying space and the alien species that inhabited it. She had always believed that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to adapt and survive, but this was different. The Iridians were unlike anything Earth had ever faced. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humanity had developed. They had weapons capable of wiping out entire cities in a blink. It seemed like there was no way Earth could win. But something inside Dr. Voss refused to accept the idea of surrender. She couldn't believe that humanity's story would end this way, kneeling before an alien empire. Her mind raced with possibilities. Could Earth fight back? Could they outsmart the Iridians? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. It was her colleague, Dr. Samuel Green, a military strategist who had been working with her on space defense research. "We have to do something," Dr. Green said, his voice filled with determination. "We can't just let them take over. We can't let humanity become another one of their colonies." Dr. Voss nodded, her face hardening with resolve. "I agree. We've faced extinction before. We won't let it happen again. But we need to think. We need to be smart about this. We can't fight them head-on, not with their power." The two scientists sat down, and together they began to brainstorm. What if there was a way to use the Iridians' arrogance against them? What if Earth could turn the tables, showing the Empire that humanity was not afraid to fight for its freedom? As the rest of the world sat in fear and uncertainty, Dr. Voss and Dr. Green began working on a plan that would change everything. They were determined to find a way to fight back. They would not let the Iridians take Earth without a fight. Back in the United Nations meeting, the ambassador's voice grew louder, demanding an answer. "We will not wait forever. You have 24 hours to respond. Your choice is simple. Surrender now or face the consequences." The world's leaders looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Some were ready to give in, afraid of the Empire's power. Others felt a growing sense of pride, a refusal to bow down to anyone. But no matter how they felt, one thing was certain. The decision they made in the next 24 hours would shape the future of humanity. And as Dr. Voss continued her work in secret, she knew that Earth's response would not be one of fear. Earth would not kneel. The clock was ticking. Earth had less than 24 hours to respond to the Iridian Empire's ultimatum. The tension in the world was almost unbearable. Governments debated, some calling for immediate surrender, while others refused to give in. But in the background, where most people weren't looking, a quiet but important change was happening. Dr. Eleanor Voss and Dr. Samuel Green were working around the clock. The two scientists had locked themselves away in a hidden research facility, deep in the mountains of California. They had no time to waste. The plans they were developing could make the difference between Earth's survival and its destruction. Dr. Voss had spent years studying alien technology, but what she had discovered in the asteroid belt was unlike anything she had seen before. A forgotten alien race had left behind their technology, scattered across the galaxy. Hidden for centuries, this technology held the potential to give Earth a fighting chance against the Empire. But it wasn't enough to just find it. They needed to understand how to use it. "Sam, I think I'm onto something," Dr. Voss said one morning, her eyes wide with excitement. She held up a strange, glowing device that hummed with energy. "This could be the key. It's not just technology. It's a blueprint for understanding the universe itself. If we can adapt it, we might have a chance." But there was still a huge problem. They were running out of time. The Iridian fleet hovered just outside Earth's orbit, and they had already begun sending waves of smaller ships to scout the planet. The tension was rising with every passing hour. Unbeknownst to the scientists, they weren't the only ones working against the Empire. A message was sent through secret channels, a message from within the Empire itself. The sender was someone no one on Earth would expect. Call Veros, an Iridian rebel. Call had been raised within the Empire, a loyal subject to the Emperor's rule. But as he grew older, he began to question the Empire's methods. He saw the suffering of the alien species under their control, the lies and manipulation that kept the galaxy in fear. He could no longer ignore the truth. When he learned that Earth had refused to kneel, he knew that it was time to act. With great risk to his own life, Call sent a message to Earth's leaders. It was a simple message. "I am Call Veros, an Iridian who seeks to end the Empire's rule. I have information that could help you. If you want to win, you must trust me." At first, no one believed it. They thought it might be a trap or a trick by the Empire to gather intelligence. But Dr. Voss, always open to new possibilities, thought it might be worth investigating. The message, after all, came from someone who truly knew the Empire from the inside. The two scientists worked quickly, reaching out to Call in secret. His information was valuable. He confirmed that the Empire's power was not as invincible as it seemed. The Iridians, despite their advanced technology, were overstretched. Their empire was built on control and fear, but the people within it were starting to rebel. The Iridian military was strong, yes, but they were beginning to fracture, especially on the farthest worlds. Call's greatest secret, however, was something even more important. The Empire's communication system, the one that linked its vast fleets together, had a weakness. If the communication hubs could be disabled, the Empire's fleet would be scattered, and Earth would have a fighting chance. But Call was no military strategist. He needed Dr. Voss's expertise to make it happen. Working together, the three of them, Dr. Voss, Dr. Green, and Call, began to plan a mission to destroy the Empire's communication hubs. It was risky, and they knew the odds of success were low. But without this mission, Earth's chance of survival would be nothing. "We can't fight them in open battle," Dr. Voss said one evening as they huddled around a table filled with star maps and blueprints. "But we can hit them where it hurts. If we can disable their communication system, they won't be able to coordinate their forces. That's our chance." Call nodded. The Empire never thought someone inside would turn against them. I've already provided you with the location of the nearest hub, but getting there won't be easy. The Empire has placed them in heavily guarded areas. We'll figure it out, Dr. Green said. We always do. The rebellion was no longer just a dream. It was starting to take shape. Earth had found an unexpected ally in Veros, and the mission to disrupt the Empire's communication system was their first step toward victory. The clock was still ticking, and Earth was running out of time. But for the first time in days, there was hope. The plan was risky, but if they succeeded, they would strike a blow to the heart of the Empire. And maybe, just maybe, they could show the galaxy that humanity would never kneel. The sun dipped below the horizon as Earth's scientists and their newfound ally, Veros, prepared for their first major strike against the Iridian Empire. The mission was risky, the odds stacked against them, but there was no turning back now. The clock was ticking, and the stakes were higher than ever. Dr. Elmer Voss, Dr. Samuel Green, and Call had worked tirelessly over the past few days, designing a plan to sabotage the Empire's most vulnerable point, their communication hubs. These hubs allowed the Empire to coordinate their massive fleets and maintain control over their far-reaching empire. If they could disable these hubs, the Empire's forces would be left confused and disorganized, giving Earth a chance to defend itself. Call's information had been invaluable. He had risked everything to provide Earth with the location of the nearest communication hub, hidden on a remote moon in the outer reaches of the solar system. It was heavily guarded, but Call had also given them one crucial piece of information. The hub's outer defenses could be bypassed, using a special frequency code embedded in the Iridian technology. The key to breaking the Empire's grip lay in their own systems. We only have one shot at this, Dr. Voss said, staring at the map of the Iridian base on the moon. Once we get there, we have to move fast. We'll have only a small window of time to disable their communication system before they realize what's happening. We're ready, Dr. Green replied, his voice steady. We've worked out the details. We have the ships, the technology, and the strategy. It's time. The operation was to be carried out by a small elite team. The scientists had worked with Earth's best pilots to build a fleet of ships capable of stealthily approaching the moon. The ships were designed to blend into the darkness of space, invisible to the Iridian sensors, at least for a short while. Call, who had once been a part of the Empire's military, would lead the mission. His knowledge of Iridian technology and tactics would be invaluable, but it also meant he was a prime target. If the Empire discovered his betrayal, they would not hesitate to eliminate him. But for Call, there was no turning back. He knew the risks, but he also knew that this was Earth's only chance. As the small fleet of ships left Earth's orbit, a sense of unity and purpose filled the crew. They were no longer just individuals. They were the spearhead of a rebellion. Their mission was not just to survive. It was to strike at the heart of the Empire and prove to the galaxy that Earth would never kneel. The journey to the moon was silent but tense. Call sat at the helm of the lead ship, his mind racing through the details of the mission. His heart pounded in his chest, but he knew that this was the moment. The Empire had underestimated Earth, and now they would feel the consequences. The fleet approached the moon from the dark side, avoiding the Empire's sensors. Dr. Voss monitored the data from her ship, constantly checking for any signs of detection. The moon's surface appeared empty, barren, perfect for a surprise attack. As they landed near the Iridian facility, Call's voice came over the comms. We have one shot. Let's make it count. The team moved quickly, deploying on foot and using the terrain for cover. They were dressed in special suits that blended with the surrounding environment, making them nearly invisible to the Empire's security cameras. The facility was heavily guarded, but Earth's team was ready. They had studied the layout and knew where to go. Dr. Voss held a small device in her hand, the key to bypassing the Iridian security systems. She plugged it into the main terminal, and after a few tense moments, the terminal hummed to life. The device began transmitting the frequency code Call had provided. The doors to the main communications hub slid open. They were in. But their victory was short-lived. Just as the team began to disable the core systems, an alarm rang out. The Iridian guards had detected the breach. The team worked faster, knowing that they had only a few moments before the Empire sent reinforcements. "Hurry," Call shouted, his voice tense. "We need to shut down their communication system now." Dr. Voss and Dr. Green worked quickly, following the instructions Call had given them. They bypassed the last security measures and shut down the system. For a brief moment, everything went quiet. The Iridian base was silent. Then, just as they were about to leave, the base's emergency lights flickered on. The Empire had activated their backup systems. The team sprinted toward their ships, hearts pounding in their chests. They were not out of danger yet. As the last of the team climbed into the ships, Call gave the order to launch. They had accomplished their mission. The Empire's communication hub was disabled. The Iridian fleets would be cut off from each other. Their coordination shattered. But the escape was not easy. The team faced fierce resistance as they tried to leave the moon's atmosphere. Iridian ships appeared out of nowhere, firing on the small fleet. It was a chaotic battle in space, but Earth's pilots fought with a determination unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. In the end, they made it out, victorious, but with a heavy price. Several ships had taken damage, and the team had lost contact with one of their own. But they had succeeded. Earth had struck its first blow against the Empire. As they made their way back to Earth, the mood was mixed, pride in their victory, but also a growing sense of dread. The Empire would not take this defeat lightly. The real war had just begun. The first strike had been a success. Earth had dealt the Empire a blow by disabling their communication hub, leaving their fleets disorganized and vulnerable. But the team knew this victory was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead. The Iridian Empire would not take this lightly. They would retaliate with everything they had. Back on Earth, the news of the mission spread like wildfire. People cheered, their hearts filled with hope for the first time in days. The message was clear. Humanity could fight back. The Empire was not invincible. But Dr. Eleanor Voss, Dr. Samuel Green, and Call Veros knew that Earth's victory would not be enough. The Empire was vast, and the power of their fleets could not be ignored. They needed to unite the galaxy's oppressed worlds, planets that had long suffered under the Empire's rule. "I've been thinking," Call said one evening as he sat with Dr. Voss and Dr. Green. "If we are going to win this, we can't just rely on Earth. The Empire has enslaved countless species. If we could show them that we are not alone, maybe we could turn the tide." Dr. Voss nodded, her eyes bright with determination. "You're right. It's time we reached out to those worlds. We need to let them know that there is hope, that Earth is not the only one willing to stand up against the Empire." They worked quickly, crafting a message of defiance, of hope, and of freedom. Dr. Voss and Call used their combined knowledge of Iridian technology to broadcast the message across the galaxy. They didn't know who would hear it, but they knew that it was worth the risk. The message went out, loud and clear. "We will not kneel. We will rise together." For weeks, there was silence. But then, something remarkable happened. Messages began to arrive. Small groups of rebels, hidden in the corners of the galaxy, responded to Earth's call. A group of miners from the planet Yeren, a race of beings once enslaved by the Empire, offered their help. So did the people of Voria, a planet long thought to be under the Empire's complete control. Word spread that more and more planets were beginning to rise up, inspired by Earth's courage. The first to arrive was a fleet of ships from the Yeren people. They were not large, but they were powerful, and their technology was different from the Empire's. They had been living in secret for years, hiding their weapons and their will to fight. Their arrival was a sign that the Empire's rule was weakening. that more and more systems were ready to break free. "The galaxy is waking up," Call said as he looked at the holographic display of the rebel fleet. "We may have started this fight, but now we are not alone." The leaders of Earth, including Dr. Voss and Dr. Green, met with the leaders of the rebel groups. They discussed their next steps, their strategy for the war ahead. It was clear that Earth's resources were limited. They could not fight the Empire alone, and they would need the support of these newly allied worlds to stand a chance. "We need to strike at the heart of the Empire," Dr. Voss said, her voice steady. "The communication hubs were just the beginning. If we can take out their military command centers, we can cause chaos and confusion throughout their ranks. We have to make them realize that their control is slipping, that their empire is falling apart." The rebel leaders agreed. Together, they would form a united front, a coalition of worlds ready to stand up to the Empire. They called it the Galactic Resistance. But not all was smooth sailing. As the resistance grew, so did the challenges. Trust between the different species was not easily earned, and the Empire's forces were still a powerful threat. But every day, more systems joined the cause. Each victory, no matter how small, fueled the fire of rebellion. In the midst of all this, Call Veros became a symbol of hope, a former member of the Empire who had turned against his own people. His journey mirrored the larger story of the galaxy. It was about overcoming fear, breaking free from oppression, and fighting for something greater than oneself. "We are not just fighting for Earth," Call said during a speech to the gathered resistance leaders. "We are fighting for every world that has ever been silenced by the Empire. We are fighting for freedom, for the future." And as Call spoke, the leaders of the Galactic Resistance began to believe in something they hadn't before. The Empire's reign could be toppled. The stars, once dominated by the Iridian Empire, now seemed full of possibility. Back on Earth, the first signs of war preparation began. Governments worked together, pooling their resources and knowledge. Earth's scientists continued to reverse engineer Iridian technology, while the military focused on building defenses and training soldiers for the coming conflict. The Resistance's alliance with the Yaren and other rebel factions brought new technology and strategies to the table. But the most important thing they had was hope, a hope that was spreading across the galaxy. The message had been sent, and the Empire was starting to feel the weight of its arrogance. They had underestimated Earth, but now the entire galaxy was starting to rise. Earth would not kneel, and neither would the galaxy. The unity of the Galactic Resistance had become stronger by the day. The various worlds, once isolated and oppressed, had joined forces in the fight against the Iridian Empire. They now shared a common purpose, a single dream: freedom. And as their ranks grew, so did their hopes. Back on Earth, Dr. Eleanor Voss, Dr. Samuel Green, and Call Veros worked around the clock, communicating with the leaders of the Resistance and coordinating strategies. The next phase of their plan was about to unfold. The Empire had been weakened by their first defeat, but they were far from giving up. The Resistance knew they would need to act quickly before the Empire could recover. The Iridian Empire, despite its vast size, was not invincible. Its military might was impressive, but it was also vulnerable. The Empire's leadership was scattered and disconnected. A perfect opportunity had arisen. The Resistance needed to strike at the heart of the Empire, the center of its military power. If they could take down the Empire's central command, it would send shockwaves throughout the galaxy and expose the cracks in its once imposing structure. "We've got one shot at this," Call said as he gathered with the leaders of the Resistance in a secret meeting on Earth. "The Empire is not going to let this happen without a fight. They will strike back harder than ever." Dr. Voss, always the strategist, studied the holographic map in front of them. The Empire's central command was located on a heavily fortified planet, surrounded by layers of defense and fleets of ships. It would be a nearly impossible mission. But the longer they waited, the more the Empire's power would grow. "We've gathered allies," Dr. Voss said, her finger pointing to the map. And we have something they don't: the element of surprise. If we strike now, while their military is still in disarray from our last victory, we stand a chance. Call nodded. It's a risky move, but it's the best chance we've got. We can't afford to wait. We need to hit them hard. The plan was set in motion. The resistance, now unified under the banner of freedom, began assembling their forces. Pilots trained for combat, engineers worked on fortifying their ships, and the leaders strategized for every possible scenario. It would be a coordinated assault involving ships from every corner of the galaxy, all working together to take down the Central Command and disable the Empire's ability to coordinate their fleets. As the fleet of ships assembled, Dr. Voss worked tirelessly, communicating with the scientists who had been reverse engineering Iridian technology. They had made great progress in understanding the Empire's weaponry and defenses. But there was one major hurdle left: the Central Command's shield system. It was nearly impenetrable, designed to withstand even the most powerful attacks. There has to be a way through it, Dr. Voss muttered, studying the shield's specifications. We've learned how their technology works, but this shield is unlike anything we've seen before. She wasn't alone in her efforts. Call and Dr. Green had been working on a solution as well. They had identified a weakness in the shield's frequency, a tiny fluctuation in its energy field that could be exploited. If they could just find a way to amplify that fluctuation and target it with precision, they might be able to disable the shield long enough for the fleet to strike. After hours of calculations and testing, they had their answer. It was a delicate operation, but it was their best chance. The fleet set off toward the Empire's Central Command, a feeling of anticipation in the air. This would be a decisive battle. If they succeeded, it would be the turning point in the war. If they failed, it could be the end of everything. As the fleet approached the planet, the Empire's forces began to react. They had detected the incoming ships, but they had no idea who or what they were dealing with. The Iridians scrambled to prepare for the assault, but they were too late. The resistance had already arrived. The first wave of ships began their attack on the shield, targeting the weak point they had identified. The energy surge was powerful enough to breach the shield for a brief moment, allowing the fleet to push through. But the Iridian defense forces were quick to respond, launching waves of fighters to intercept the resistance. "This is it," Call said over the comms, his voice calm but filled with determination. "Stay focused, and remember why we're here. We fight for freedom." The battle in space was fierce, with explosions lighting up the dark expanse. The Resistance fleet was outnumbered, but they fought with a resolve that the Empire could not match. Earth's ships, equipped with new technology developed by Dr. Voss and Dr. Green, were able to hold their own against the Iridian fighters. Dr. Voss watched from her command ship as the Central Command building came into view. The final stage of their mission was at hand. They had to make it through the final defenses and disable the command center before the Empire could regroup. The Resistance fleet pushed forward, and with one final push, they managed to breach the command center's outer defenses. The central hub, a massive structure surrounded by laser cannons and shields, now lay within their reach. "This is it," Dr. Voss said, taking a deep breath. "We've come too far to fail now." The final strike began. The Resistance's best pilots, led by Call, dove into the heart of the command center, striking with precision and force. The Empire's Central Military Command was about to fall, and with it, the first major blow to their power. The battle for the Empire's Central Command was reaching its most crucial moment. The Resistance, though outnumbered, had pushed through the Empire's defenses with determination and strategy. Now, as their ships surrounded the Central Command building, it was clear to all that the fate of the galaxy was hanging by a thread. Inside the command center, the Empire's top leaders scrambled to regain control. Their forces had been caught off guard, and the central hub, the very heart of their power, was now under siege. Their communication system was down, their fleets scattered, and their military command in disarray. "This is it. We can't let them take this." High Commander Korik, the leader of the Iridian military, growled as he watched the battle unfold on his monitors. His face was tense, a combination of anger and fear. The Resistance's unexpected success had shattered the illusion of their invincibility. Korik and his generals had underestimated the strength of Earth's resolve and the power of their growing alliances. Now they had to make one final attempt to turn the tide in their favor. "Send reinforcements. We have to hold the command center," Korik ordered, his voice sharp. But deep down, he knew it was too late. The Resistance had already proven that they could disrupt the Empire's grip on power. The rebellion was no longer just a dream. It was a reality that was quickly taking shape. Back on Earth, Dr. Eleanor Voss, Dr. Samuel Green, and Carl Veros watched as the Resistance fleet moved closer to the command center. The atmosphere was tense, each moment filled with the anticipation of what was to come. They had come so far. They had fought so hard to get to this point. There was no turning back now. "We're almost there," Dr. Voss said quietly, her eyes glued to the screen. She was focused, but in the back of her mind, she couldn't help but wonder how much longer they could hold on to this newfound hope. The Empire was powerful, and though they had struck at the heart of its military, it was still a vast and dangerous force. Carl, ever the strategist, paced back and forth as he watched the battle unfold. He knew this would be a defining moment for the Resistance, but he also understood that victory was never guaranteed. The Empire would not fall easily. "Keep your focus," Carl said to the team. "We've only just started this fight. Whatever happens next, we need to be ready for the consequences." The final assault on the Central Command began in full force. Earth's fleet, alongside their new allies, launched everything they had at the heart of the Empire. Ships fired powerful beams at the command center shields, while fighters darted between enemy ships, evading the Iridians' attempts to block their advance. It was a battle unlike any other, desperate, fast-paced, and filled with the sound of weaponry echoing across space. Dr. Voss had always believed in the power of knowledge, but even she knew that sometimes knowledge alone wasn't enough. They were fighting for something much larger now, the future of countless worlds, the dream of a galaxy free from the Empire's oppression. This wasn't just a mission. It was the beginning of a new era. As the Resistance closed in on the command center, the Empire's final line of defense was activated. Massive turrets, designed to protect the heart of the Empire, opened fire. For a moment, it seemed as though the Resistance would be overwhelmed by the barrage. But they had anticipated this. "We've got this," Dr. Green said from his station, watching as the ships maneuvered and dodged the incoming fire. The Resistance pilots, trained for moments like this, expertly avoided the enemy's blasts, closing in on their target. With a well-timed strike, one of the Resistance's most skilled pilots, Captain Iris Wren, disabled the final defense turret. The shields surrounding the Central Command flickered and began to fail, allowing the Resistance ships to make their final push. The moment was critical. The Empire was not going to give up without a fight, and the Resistance had to act fast before they could regroup. Carl Veros led the charge. His ship, a sleek vessel built for precision, darted through the chaos of the battlefield, weaving between enemy fire. He was determined to reach the Central Command and plant the final blow that would cripple the Empire's control. The future of the galaxy depended on it. As Carl's ship approached the command center, he could see the structure before him, a towering, imposing fortress surrounded by the wreckage of fallen ships. His heart raced, but his resolve remained steady. He had once been a part of this empire, and now he was leading the charge against it. He had nothing to lose. With a deep breath, Carl fired the final shot. A powerful beam shot from his ship, striking the Central Command's core. The explosion was massive. The heart of the Empire was finally cracked open. Inside the command center, the shockwave was felt. The screens went black, and the once proud Iridian military lost all communication. For the first time in years, the Empire was silent. On Earth, Dr. Voss and Dr. Green watched in disbelief as the Central Command collapsed. The galaxy's tyrants were no longer in control. The Resistance had won a victory that no one could have imagined just months ago. "This is just the beginning," Dr. Voss said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and determination. "We've shown them that we can win, and now we'll show them that we will never give up." The fall of the Empire's heart had dealt a devastating blow to its power. The Resistance had taken a giant step forward, but they knew the fight was far from over. The galaxy was vast, and the Empire's grip extended far beyond this one battle. But for the first time, they had hope, real hope. The Empire's reign was faltering, and the Resistance was ready to continue the fight. The fall of the Empire's central command was a moment that would echo through the ages. The galaxy, once gripped by fear and tyranny, now had a chance for something different, a chance for peace, freedom, and unity. The Resistance had struck a decisive blow, but the fight was far from over. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. People from every corner of the planet gathered to celebrate. The victory over the Empire's central command had been a turning point, but the war was not finished. Yet for the first time, Earth's citizens allowed themselves to hope. They were no longer alone. The galaxy was with them, and together, they would shape a new future. Dr. Eleanor Voss, Dr. Samuel Green, and Carl Veros watched the celebrations from a distance. They had worked tirelessly to bring about this moment, but now that it was here, they knew the real work was just beginning. The Empire was still vast, and its forces would regroup. The Resistance had no illusions about the challenges ahead. "This victory was important," Dr. Voss said, her voice calm and thoughtful. "But we cannot let our guard down. The Empire will retaliate. We must prepare for the battles to come." Carl nodded in agreement. He had been part of the Empire, and he understood how it worked. The Iridians would not give up easily. But even so, he could feel the shift. The galaxy had changed in ways the Empire had never anticipated. "We've got more allies than ever," Carl said, "and the Empire has been dealt a major blow. Their hold on the galaxy is weakening, but we need to keep the momentum." The next step was clear: unite the scattered planets that had risen up against the Empire. There were still many worlds under the Empire's control, and the Resistance needed to ensure they didn't fall back under Iridian rule. Every world that joined their cause made them stronger, and together they could drive the Empire from the stars. The leaders of the Resistance began coordinating with their allies, the Yeren people, the miners of Voria, and countless others had pledged their support. They had one goal now: to drive the Empire out of the galaxy and bring an end to its oppressive reign. As the days passed, the Resistance's forces grew stronger. Earth, once isolated and unsure, now had the backing of numerous rebel groups. They were no longer just a small spark of defiance. They were the heart of a growing movement. The galaxy was waking up, and with every new ally, the Empire's grip loosened. But the Empire was far from finished. The next battle would be even harder than the last. Korik, the High Commander of the Iridian military, was not one to retreat easily. He had lost the central command, but he still had powerful fleets and weapons at his disposal. He would not let the Resistance take the galaxy without a fight. "We will not let this go unpunished," Korik said, his voice filled with determination as he addressed his remaining commanders. "The rebels think they've won, but this is far from over. The Empire is not defeated. We will crush them." The Resistance knew the Empire's retaliation was coming. They could feel it in the air. The calm after their victory would not last. But this time, they were ready. They had learned from their previous battles, and they had the support of a galaxy it was no longer willing to bow down. Carl Veros, now a symbol of the Resistance, stood before the united leaders of Earth and their allies. The people of the galaxy had come together, and they had a choice to make: continue the fight and bring an end to the Empire, or allow the darkness to return. They chose to fight. "We are not just fighting for Earth," Carl said, his voice strong. "We are fighting for every world that has ever been silenced. We are fighting for freedom, for the future of the galaxy. Together, we will see this through." Together, we will bring the empire to its knees." The words resonated with the leaders and fighters around him. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had a real chance for peace. The resistance was not just a symbol of hope anymore. It was the driving force behind a movement that could reshape the entire galaxy. As the resistance prepared for the next battle, the people of Earth and their allies knew that the future was uncertain. But they had something they hadn't had before: unity, determination, and hope. The fight was far from over, but they would never give up. They had already proven that. The Empire, once thought to be unstoppable, had been shaken to its core. The resistance had dealt a blow that could not be ignored. And as the stars above shone brightly, a new dawn was rising for the galaxy. The people would no longer kneel. They would stand together, and they would fight for the freedom they deserved. The war was not over, but the resistance knew they were on the right path. And for the first time, they believed victory was within their reach.